so much for coming out today. My name is Amanda Manahan, and I am the Museum of Education and Tour Manager at the Oberlin Heritage Center. Real quick, just so everybody knows, we are recording tonight's program. So if you are interested, or if you've heard other people who have missed tonight's program, we'll hopefully be sending out a YouTube link here in the coming days. So just a couple of quick housekeeping announcements. We have refreshments provided by the Oberlin Public Library. Please feel free to help yourselves. And we have some upcoming programs at the Heritage Center. Pleased to say that with the Oberlin Public Library and with the Lorraine Public Library system, as well as the Lorraine Historical Society, we've all partnered together, and we're in the middle of, well, we're just launching a big read of Beloved, Toni Morrison's Beloved. So there will be free books being distributed both here and at the Lorraine Library, so keep an eye out for those details. As part of that program that's going on through pretty much June of this year, we're also offering a program on Tuesday, March 11th, so right here, back here, same time. It's about Margaret Garner. Margaret Garner was the real-life inspiration for Toni Morrison in writing her book, Beloved. So we'll be doing that again Tuesday, March 11th. We also have on Tuesday, April 1st, not here, but at Kendall, at 7:15, we have a program, Cleveland Baseball Breaking the American League's Color Barrier, about Larry Doty. So that will be an interesting program by Mary Manning, who used to be an AmeriCorps member at the Heritage Center. Let's see here. So tonight's program will be highlighting some of the businesses over the last 100 years or so in Oberlin, as well as the entrepreneurial individuals behind them. This presentation does not include a comprehensive list of all those individuals who have created jobs and products and businesses, but we are constantly trying to capture these stories. So on the table over here, we have some materials from the Heritage Center, and we also have an index, that large binder there. There's about 120 files in there. So we have about 120 businesses and names so far, but we know we're missing a lot. So if you want to take a look through there, I have some blank forms. If you have any information of people that we're missing that we should know more about, also have Post-it notes, so if you have corrections or additions to any existing information, you can just jot it down. We really appreciate your help in trying to make sure that we're, again, appropriately capturing these stories. OHC has also offered a series of these programs focused around Black business owners of Oberlin over the years, and that's been really possible with the help and input from so many individuals, many who are in the room this evening, and also from those who have moved away. So I'm very pleased that this evening's program, though, it's a first. It's an opportunity to hear directly from those who have firsthand experiences and memories to share. In addition to showing some images up on the screen here, we'll also, pardon me, I lost my spot. So you might see some businesses featured on the screen in addition to those that are mentioned by the individuals who will be speaking this evening. So we have also allotted some time at the end of this program if anybody would like to stand up and say anything as well. So before we get started, I want to say thank you to those of you who have contributed to this program over the years and tonight. I also want to thank the Evans House Historical Society and Nancy Wall for kind of sparking this idea to host tonight's program and for partnering with us with OHC. I would also like to thank OAG for also co-hosting, and to, again, the Oberlin Public Library for the refreshments and the space and the setup for tonight. So before we get started with the live speakers here, in-person speakers, I would like to play a recording from Patsy Scott Timus, the daughter of Burl Scott, who was a mason, a bricklayer, and a business owner. Patsy lives in Virginia, but she cannot join us in person tonight. but she graciously allowed me to talk with her last week and record that conversation about her family and specifically about her father. So this recording lasts about 7 minutes, and then we'll get started with the rest of the program.
My dad learned the trade from his uncle, Mr. Palmer, who also had a business there in Oberlin. But my dad was in business as B.O. Scott Masonry Construction for 46 years. He had, actually at one time he had offices in Ohio and Indiana. So 2 in Ohio, 1 in Oberlin. He had an office in Oberlin, which was actually in our home. And then he had the office in Elyria. And he had his own building at 120 Keith Court. And he also had an office in Indiana. So at one time or another, my dad had projects going in 5 different states. Indiana, Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Probably had, 50 plus people working across all those projects. He would hire locally for each of the projects he had in the different states.
Did he start the company when he lived here in Oberlin?
Yes, we lived at 276 Pleasant Street, and that's where his first office was.
Did he build that house?
Yes, we built that house. Then he built a big addition onto that house. Just a side note, the house that Angela and Stephanie grew up in, he built that house too. Our family, we had a joke because we had like a little compound, and we had a lot of relatives that lived in Oberlin and also had businesses and worked together. One of my uncles was an architect. There are a couple of builders. Our house on Pleasant Street backed onto the property on Main Street where Angela and Stephanie's grandmother lived, and they shared a driveway, and across that driveway were the Palmers, Luther Palmer and his wife, Wilsie. So they also had an interest in a nursing home in Cleveland, a couple of nursing homes in Cleveland. So it was kind of an entrepreneurial family. I guess Oberlin was the right environment for that, given Oberlin's history.
Any other family businesses, or did your siblings, any of them get into any of the family businesses?
Not the family businesses, no. My brother ran a custodial company out in San Francisco for a few years. It was unfortunate that during that time, I wanted to join the business, but my dad didn't think it was a business for, quote unquote, a lady. So I didn't get involved with the family business.
What other structures was he involved with?
He did the addition for the art museum there in Oberlin. He was a masonry contractor on that. He did the masonry work on the science building at Cleveland State University. He did masonry work on the Ohio State Office Tower in Cleveland. He wasn't really a residential building. He was always doing masonry work with some of the big subdivisions. He would do the curbing, that goes around the streets and things like that. And one of the things he's most proud of is the statue in the MLK Park there in Oberlin. One other thing that came to me, those little pagoda houses that are sprinkled around Oberlin? They were the first kind of public housing developments in Oberlin. So he did those houses.
Were there any barriers or any notable stories?
Just kind of normal during the time frame when he was first coming up, and even, throughout his career before they moved from Ohio. It's kind of normal barriers for a minority, and I know my dad took great pains to make sure he hired minorities to give them an opportunity at, higher jobs with higher wages.
Well, do you want to talk more about his community involvement?
Well, at one point, he was president of the school board. He was on the planning commission there in Oberlin. And he was the lay pastor for the Park Street Seventh-day Adventist Church. He was also president of the Youth Congress for the Allegheny East Conference of Seventh-day Adventists.
I read an article about your father being involved with the Carpenters for Christmas in 1964.
He was approached by professors there at Oberlin College. They were going to do a project to go help rebuild one of the churches that had been bombed down in, I think it was Ripley, Mississippi, Ripley, Holly Springs, Mississippi. He went down there to teach the students how to lay brick. And so that Christmas break, they helped to rebuild that church. I do remember him saying that for him, there was quite a stir, and the Ku Klux Klan was not happy that they were there. He related a story to me that he stayed in the home of one of the parishioners there, but he had to sleep on the floor because they didn't want to sleep up high where, the Klan could come by and shoot at him. The story is that he had to be sneaked out of the town after a while because the Klan was after him. So he had to be driven out of town dark at night, and it was so many people involved in SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, got him out of town. So those were the times. I remember that kind of vividly when he sat us down in the living room and said he was going, and I begged him not to go. I was 12, and I really begged him not to go because I don't understood what was going on. But he went anyway, and the folks got to a new church, and he came back safe and sound. But just growing up, I just knew my dad truly was my hero, and we just thought he could do anything. Anything that happened was like, oh yeah, Daddy can fix it. Don't worry about it. I was just always kind of proud to be his daughter because he was a good man. In the church, when people had a need, I remember somebody's house burned down, and he literally took the furniture out of our house and gave it to them. That did not go over that well with my mother, but she got over it. But I remember literally he came in and took the furniture out because they were in greater need, he felt, than we were. So to me, that's the kind of man he was.
What would you say his legacy has been?
I think part of his legacy was the fact that the people he hired who worked for them, they had an opportunity at maybe a better life than they would have. He definitely set an example not only in the community, but in his church. He was well respected. I think the legacy is the people that he helped and mentored, and hopefully they paid it forward and helped and mentored other people.
So I want to say thank you to Angèle Peterson and Stephanie McMillan, cousins of Patsy, who put me in contact with her. And at this time, if we could turn up the lights a little bit. And those of you who were invited as panelists to come on up, if you want to, feel free to have a seat at either table. If you came in and I didn't notice once we got started, is St. John Harris here? Or Diane Pope. Okay, but if we could have Sondra Miller, Angèle Peterson, and Stephanie McMillan, Stephanie Jones, and Laura Gooch-Brown, if you want to come on up. And I think that's everyone who's here.
How's everybody tonight? Good. All right. We got audience participation. Well, if you don't know, my name is Sondra Miller, and I am the daughter of Fred Owens and Shirley Owens. And excuse me. Our family was really prominent in the restaurant business for a lot of years. But in introducing myself, I just want to let you know that the principles and things that I learned from my dad and what he taught me about business and entrepreneurship really stuck with me. And I took my take on what he taught me, and I like to think that I've done very well with that. And I am currently on several committees with the city. I'm having a blast, and I work at Kohl's right now.
Thank you, Sondra. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to hop over here.
Hi, my name is Stephanie McMillan, and this is my sister Angèle Peterson. We are the granddaughters of S.B. and Bessie Carter, who opened the Carter's Nursing Home. They originally opened their home, to go back a little bit about their history, when they were in college, they saw the difficult path that it was financially to achieve their education. So while they were students, they housed children with them while they could attend school and not have to pay the room and board. And they couldn't stay there forever at the college, so they came to Oberlin and opened the nursing home business, all under the guise of serving their community, but at the same time wanting to have an income to be able to help students to achieve their education. So they started in their home on Vine Street, then on North Main, and then they built the home on Lorraine Street. And all the while, they sponsored children and helped them with their education. Also, besides giving them money, they then in turn provided a work-study program for them that they could come in the summers and help to earn money for their education. And although that the nursing home is now closed, we have started in 2021, started a foundation in their memory to help students with their costs of their education.
Just along with our cousin Patsy, who you heard on the recording for Girl Scouts, so he was instrumental in building our home, the nursing home, their home on Pleasant Street, and our grandparents' home, which was in the one picture on North Main Street. But we had a lot of family in the area at that time, and a lot of family that worked at the nursing home. But all of those people that worked at the nursing home, they were our family. And just growing up in that environment, I know some people, I don't say they're squeamish, but people don't like to go to nursing homes, you know. But having grown up in that environment, it's nothing to me. That was like my second home. That's my grandfather, that was his life. I never knew my grandmother. She passed before I was born. But my grandfather, not so much my mom, that was just not her passion. I mean, that's why she ended up selling the nursing home in 1991. But my grandfather, that was his life. He truly poured himself into the nursing home. And it was the first building in Oberlin built for the specific purpose of being a nursing home. And everyone else had nursing homes in their homes, but they were the first ones that built one in the city to care for the elderly.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Jones. I'm Stephanie Pettiford. I'm sure a lot of you remember me as that. I'm the youngest daughter of Wallace and Gwen Pettiford from Pettiford's Bakery. We were in business from 1923 to 1988. We were first located on Vine Street where Pufford's Florist used to be, and then we moved to 18 South Main Street until we closed. I had many memories of the bakery. My dad and my grandfather were there when I was younger, and I was showing my sister my notes. She was laughing because I remember my grandfather with his little white baker's hat on when I'd go in. And then when I was old enough to work there, we had a stool And I could climb up on and sit there and wait for people to come in, and then I would climb down and I could see over the counter finally, because for a long time I couldn't see over the counter. But still short too, so. But great memories working there from that point until I graduated from high school, and then coming back and helping out. I learned how to decorate cakes. I always did the glazed donuts. I learned how to flip them when they were frying in the pan, so I had to learn how to not get burned. But just wonderful memories growing up. And my sister Cheryl, the oldest, is here also. And I'll let my niece talk about her experiences of the bakery after I had left.
Good evening, everyone. I am the granddaughter of Wallace Pettiford, Cheryl's daughter. So, yeah, my memories, I was obviously a lot younger. I came in at the end of the bakery years, but my memories were always coming in the back door of the bakery, smelling everything before it even got to the front with everyone else. I love seeing all the big equipment and the big mixing bowls and everything. As a 7-, 8-year-old, it just looked humongous and overwhelming, but very cool. The smell of glaze, whew, still is amazing to me. And just being around my grandfather, watching him as a businessman and seeing what he did for the Oberlin community, and just being around seeing the ins and outs of what he did behind the scenes for the bakery, and being able to taste things as he was working on things was a nice perk.
Thank you so much. I do have some prompts, but I want to kind of pose it to the audience. Do you have any questions? Do you have any memories that you want to kind of contribute to these conversations that we're having up here? Let's start here. We can do a mic first.
Oh, that's okay. My name is Larry Donaldson, and Pettiford's we lived right across the street from the Pettifords on Groveland. And I remember your grandpa snail rolls. They were, it was a big thing for us to have them on the holidays, and they were the best ever. But that was a great family bakery. We miss it here today. Oh, I want to say hi to Cheryl, and grew up with Cheryl, yeah. And Skip, is Skip still?
He's in Maryland.
He's in Maryland.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you have your hand up? Yeah. Okay.
My name is Rita Pickens Fitch, and I came in 1973 with 2 children on welfare, and the Carter family really made an impression on me having that home, because I was taking sociology at Oberlin College, and we had to come to Carter, the 2nd floor, to teach the children that were elementary school, and my professor is here now, Booker Peak. And he's the one that was instrumental in teaching us sociology at Carter Nursing Home.
Thank you.
They did rent the upstairs. There was a school on the back part upstairs. I don't remember the full name of it, but they did rent it. And it was, what was it called? Shoelake, that's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Dorothy Luciano. What I remember from Pettiford's Bakery, and I did not see them on the shelves, was the chocolate stars.
We have great memories of was our only choice, was to have him make the cake. But the greatest of all joys in life was if you could be at the bakery when the donuts had just come out. Now, there were people that liked the brownies and all that, but it was the donuts. And sometimes I'd come in and I'd want a roll or something, and he'd just very subtly just shake his head, which means those aren't today's, those are yesterday's. He was a great man. I enjoyed him.
This gentleman mentioned something special about the donuts. Well, a lot of people ate the donuts, but I ate perhaps more hot donuts than anybody. I would call from my office at Oberlin College to get the exact time those donuts were ready. And I would make it on time typically, because I was young and I could run. But occasionally, the traffic light would catch me. I looked to see if there were a policeman around. It didn't matter, I crossed that street. I got those hot donuts. They were the best ever. Hot donuts. I'm glad to see this gentleman too enjoyed it. That's what I ate most of. So all I can say is, it was a period of my life that I will never forget, because he was so helpful, again, in telling me the exact time to be in his office. Thank you.
Yes, I remember Mr. P, Professor P coming into the bridge in the morning, first thing, Daddy always said, the bridge, okay, forgive me. Forgot where I was. But yeah, he would come in, first thing, Daddy said, Mr. Peak's already been in. I was like, okay, well, we're taking care of it. And then also, he used to deliver the bread for Prestes. We always made the Italian loaves for Prestes. So we would go out there in Oberlin Inn. And my first experience with the wedding cakes, I hope, well, no, it wasn't yours, but I had to help deliver one time and was scared to death. I was walking like this. I was like, I can't drop it because then the people would never forgive us. So, but yeah, it was enjoyable. And all of you had come in sometime, and thank you.
I have a quick question. We hear about the hep bread a lot. Can you describe that to those of us who have not been able to try it?
I know that it was wheat germ, but beside that, I'm not sure. And then he had a special pan, a round pan, that had like maybe 3 loaves that you could put in it. Because I remember folding it over, and then you had to lock it when you got ready to bake it. So, but I know it was wheat germ that was in it. And yes, I have a lot of the recipes at home, and I get stopped everywhere I go asking when I'm going to make them. So I told my husband, maybe after I retire, that might be my part-time job. But it's hard work, because I know Daddy would leave and be at the bakery at 5 o'clock in the morning and didn't come home until after 7. So.
Anything else?
Liz Burgess, and when I was at college, I had to pay for my own room and board, and I was off campus. And I must have looked like a skinny, hungry waif, because Mr. Pettiford came out and brought me in and gave me a donut. And then he offered me a job. So I had a job working behind the counter, but I also, and I know that look, when which donuts you were supposed to get and not supposed to get, because he didn't put preservatives in anything. Nothing was a mix. It was all from scratch. So yesterday's was not as good as today's. But I had 2 jobs. One of them was slicing the bread on a machine that had wires and jiggled. And so I cut the hep bread, which was round and perfect for making hamburgers and things like that. And if you have that recipe, I'll pay for it. And the other was glazing donuts that I had they were like big chopsticks, and I'd flip them over in the fry pan in the deep fryer, and then pour the glaze over them when they were on the counter. And I was paid $1 an hour. And all the donuts I could eat. And he used to laugh that he'd have to make 14 dozen in order to get 12 dozen to put out. He was a very kind man. And he and Miss Younglis, who was his employee at the time, they just had the best good-natured bickering constantly at each other. And occasionally, if they, in the middle of one of these bickering back and forth, the end piece of dough that was being measured out would fly across the room.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, oh.
Before I say anything about Pettiford's, your restaurant had the best milkshakes in the world. It's the only place I would give them from. And we were in there many a time, so thank you. I worked in the bakery from high school until I left for college. And I remember Dad always telling us that the customer was always right. And that was hard to remember sometimes, especially in Oberlin College. And he would always say, all right, you need to be more professional and do what I told you and be respectful to everyone. So that was the lesson that I learned from him.
And this also is to Sandra, because the campus restaurant was my first job. I remember in high school, I was probably only in 9th or 10th grade, but when she mentioned the milkshake machine, I remember those very well. And that's why I'm the size I am now, by the way. But a lot of fun memories there.
Cindy, did my dad teach you how to count change?
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of people still tell me they remember that when he taught them how to count change.
One thing about the campus restaurant was the businessmen's table.
Oh, yes.
Where no one was allowed to sit unless you were a downtown business. And Aunt Dorothy, she monitored that and made sure nobody else.
Sandra, the other thing about the change is the tips that you would get. A lot of times was change. But I can remember being so excited when I got home because I'd spread all that change on my bed. And it adds up, you know. For a 14 or 15-year-old, you know, $10 or $15, that was quite nice. So when you mentioned change.
Does anybody remember phosphates? Anybody know what a phosphate is? Okay, there's some nods there. Well, my Aunt Charlotte, who helped out my dad, she taught me at a very young age. I was back there working the soda fountain, making ice cream sodas, phosphates, which is just the syrup and soda water, okay? And the milkshakes. So, yeah, and the malts, definitely the malts. Yeah, and the Sundays, Hot for Sunday, anybody remember that? Yeah, so I learned how to do that first. That's when they got me to start working.
Well, one question I
One question I wanted to ask, especially with your family and education, can you kind of talk about their legacy a little bit more, like what that means to you?
I guess, well, part of the work study, even when we were getting ready to go to college ourselves, actually, I mean, like 4th, 5th grade that was our first job, was working at the nursing home. We would do like comb the hair sometimes, or we would work in the kitchen, and then we kind of graduated to the office as we got older. But always, you know, being able to participate with the patients, or my mom always made sure we called them residents, because that was their home. Just to always, you know, have that looking out, kind spirit is part of the legacy, and then giving back and the education. From the time that the nursing home closed, I myself started to help kids on my own, and then I wanted to do it formally, and in their honor, I named it after our foundation after Carter Peterson, which is my dad's last name, and McMillan is my last name, so that we could continue that legacy. And as Amanda had, I don't know if it was up there on the slide, that the college that they attended, they did build a dormitory in tribute to my grandmother, Carter Hall. And so the school that they attended, we attended as well. And my parents attended, we all went to the same school, that forever.
What's the school?
Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama. And so for the building itself is a legacy that speaks to her, but we wanted to remind everyone of their giving and their legacy of giving and helping students, and that's why we have continued that foundation today.
I'll just share that as growing up, I remember, I mean, there would always be family or students from a school that would stay with us, because our home was always open. And whether, because of where the school was that Ms. Pickens spoke about, we also would house students that would stay. We had people that came from England, Africa, but our family, they were always giving. So sometimes for us, you know, we have company that's supposed to have been there maybe a week or two, but might have been there for months or even years that would stay with us. But that's just how our family was in helping students. And if they went to school at Oakwood, then they knew in the summer they could come and work at the nursing home for the summer break to earn money to get back in school. And not only was it to help with their education, but you know, that's expensive, but all the necessities that you need for school, they would help with those too. You know, make sure my mom, whoever she saw to school, she took them at the time was Gold Circle. You know, take them over to Gold Circle and, you know, let them shop and get what they needed for their school. And I just remember that our home was open to everyone.
Is there still an Oakwood University?
Yes, there is.
I'll present this.
I just want to interject. A lot of the students that we assist from our foundation are at Oakwood University, but we help students at any school, from high school to undergraduate. And initially it was our initiative to try and find students, but over the last year or so, word of mouth has transferred from student to student. So, but, you know, we try to continue to help as best we can.
I'll present this to anyone. I just have a quick question too. Were there any notable successes or challenges that you remember for your respective family members or businesses?
Well, I think that my dad, he was pretty innovative. Number one, back in the 70s, before there was ever a Pizza Hut or anybody that delivered, my dad had a delivery service that he delivered to college students in the town.
Yes, he did.
Yes, yeah. Okay. And we were the first to do that. We were also the first to do hamburgers with more than just meat and lettuce. We had gourmet burgers. We had the famous Mr. Fred was eaten back then. And my aunt made clam chowder every Friday for lunch, and it was sold out almost by 12:30. So she couldn't make enough of it, so she was famous for that clam chowder. And I also think the students were real appreciative of the work that we did getting food out to them. It was kind of fun when you were young and to be able to run around the dorms getting food at that time and make those students happy. But the students rewarded him with a plaque one time, and it had on it, the Doctor of Dependable Delivery Service. And and that came from Oberlin College students. So I think that was great. And as far as any challenges, we had the same challenges you had today. That we were busy for 9 months, and in the summer, it kind of slacked off. So we had to be think about that, you know, getting things ahead as much as we could to make it through those summer months. But it was a fun time being downtown, being a kid downtown, and your friends would be with you downtown, and we'd be running around, and it was fun interacting with other businesses. They used to, I remember at 16, I had a credit at Hollowers. I could go get a little 45 every week and pay him the next week, and he was happy. And so, you know, it was the fun times that we had as well. And I just want to say that I remember the fried cakes now. I remember those fried cakes with the powder on them. We had those every day. And my grandmother, Rosanna Freeman, she worked for her Carters.
I just want to thank you for having Quick and Delicious, the restaurant, because we could go there on a Thursday night and dance, sing and dance.
Do you want to answer that last question I had? Any notable successes, challenges?
So, challenges, what was the other question?
Any successes?
Oh, successes.
Dad was honored by the NAACP as a business owner in town also. And then just all of the accolades from everybody else. One of the problems, I guess, or things in Oberlin that we had was when my grandfather wanted to buy the building. As a black man, he was not able to do that, so we had to rent until 1988.
How about we talk about legacy over here a little bit, but over here too. What do you think about the legacy of your families and their impact on the community?
So the legacy for not only the bakery, but the Pettiford family is determination, strength, hard work. My grandfather was extremely hardworking. So not only was he running a business with the bakery, he also worked in the steel mill, correct? So he was very busy, so there was no laziness around him. There was no, I'm tired, I don't feel like doing that around this man right here. So I think all of us, through his children and his grandchildren, determination and hard work, and we see how it pays off. Like, we hear the stories like you're sharing today about the bakery, and how my grandfather greeted you, and you know, the quirky things he said to people, and you know, the relationships he built in Oberlin. That's what we carry as his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And we would love to have a bakery. None of us come close to baking to the ability he was. I know my Aunt Stephanie does the bulk of the cooking and baking in our family, and she has the recipes. I bake a little, but I will never compare to the greatness that Wallace Pettiford has set for our family, and knowing that he is one of the oldest black businessmen in Oberlin, means a lot to our family, and we always want to make him proud and to continue that legacy that he and his father Clarence started. We carry that in our own way. It may not be a bakery, but we strive to instill what he's instilled in us. We pass that on to others.
Well, my dad was a really intense person, those of you that knew him. But he was always striving for greatness. He was always trying to do it better. And one of the things that he taught us when we were children, he always taught us to work hard, of course, but he said, you don't have to take a back seat to anyone. You're just as good as anybody else. And you get out there and work for it, and he taught us to have integrity. And he was very inspirational at teaching us how to run a business, I mean, the basics were there, you know, so you knew you had to have training, you had to have, you had to have a plan, and you had to be kind to people. And that's a legacy. People come to me and say things all the time. It's about creating an atmosphere, and he did that. We had the jukebox, we had, other little memories that people remember. And so as an individual myself, that was his little lessons were some of the biggest lessons that I can remember. And I feel that my involvement in the things that I do now honors the things that he taught me. And I'm very proud of that.
Thank you. We have a few minutes left, so you want to, yes, please, that was my question. Is there anything that you want to talk about that we have not been able to explore?
I'm sorry, I just have one last thing. We're talking about Pettiford's Bakery and Wallace Pettiford. I can't leave here tonight and not acknowledge Gwendolyn Pettiford, his wife, their mom, my grandmother, and her role in the bakery too.
Obviously, the Pettifords have been in Oberlin for a long time, but where did they come from?
North Carolina.
I'm not sure everyone heard of the reply. I know, and I don't know the people in the back.
The family was from North Carolina. The Pettifords were. So, and then there were also my grandfather's sister. They lived in Wakeman, and her husband was a black business owner up there also. He had a black barber shop in Wakeman.
And as we grew up, as the Douglas family were right across the street from Cheryl and Skip, we knew your great-grandfather, who I think he probably started the business. That's how far we go back with him, yeah.
Yeah, my grandfather, Clarence.
Yes. Clarence, yes. Yeah.
For my grandparents, they came from Alabama, and then they went to Dayton, and then they came to Oberlin. But what brought them here was Charles Stewart and Bonnie Stewart. They had come from Cleveland when the Seventh-day Adventist Church started here. It was in a home, and they needed a lay pastor. So Uncle Charlie came, and he told, Aunt Bonnie, his wife, was my grandmother's sister. So Bessie Carter, they spread the word like this is a nice community, for blacks. And so then they came, and then as you saw, Earl Scott, he was married to Bonnie Scott, who was a Dobbins. And then there's also the Harris family. Those were related to us. The Kimmy family, Gail and Richard Kimmy. So we used to, it's only myself and the Perlmans that are left in our family here. But at one time, we had a lot of family here in the city.
Sondra, is there anything else you wanted to share?
Sondra, I'll share something for you. Down memory lane. But when we talk about legacy and we talk about hard work, one thing I have to say about your dad, because I worked in the evenings after school and on Saturdays, but there was no job too small for him. And I think that's what stuck in my mind. Yeah, this is a businessman, but he would clean tables. You know, there was nothing that he would ask somebody else to do that he wouldn't do. So for me, as I grew older, I realized you don't just delegate as a boss, but you become that role model and that example. And that's what he did. If he had to wait tables, he waited tables. But he knew everybody and everyone knew him. So he greeted. So he didn't stay in the back and just point. He was at that front door greeting or he was bussing tables. So that stuck out.
I agree with that completely. And I feel that that's another one of the attributes that he taught me and helped the philosophy on how I personally deal with people. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Maybe like one or two more.
I just want to remind the Heritage Center about the book of Betty on the Carter. So if you could talk more about that book, her picture, it's at the Heritage Center, and with lots of words.
It's okay. Do you mean a binder over here?
Not a binder,
No.
it's a regular book, and it's about women, but her picture is.
Oh, yes, there's a book of oral histories that were done in Oberlin from the 70s on, and so Bonus the Boardrooms is the name of that book.
Her picture's on the cover.
Thank you. Okay, well, with that, let's give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you. And thank you again for everyone who also shared and came out this evening. We have, again, refreshments. Feel free to stick around, have some time for fellowship, have small conversations, whatever you'd like to do. So thank you all very much for everything.